All right, in this explainer, we're going to conduct what's really a forensic examination of one of the most pivotal dialogues in the entire Qur'an. We're talking about the exchange between God and Iblis right after his refusal to bow to Adam. We're going to do a granular analysis of the commentary on verses 14 through 18 of Surah Al-Aʿrāf and really break down the blueprint for eternal spiritual warfare that's laid out in these few lines.
So what you're looking at here is our source text. This is the detailed exegesis that really unpacks the theological and, frankly, the strategic dimensions of these verses. This dialogue is so important because it establishes the eternal conflict between divine guidance and satanic misguidance. Let's dive right in. So here's how we're going to break this down. We're going to move through it systematically. First, we'll look at Iblis's request for a reprieve and the divine response. Then, his declaration of enmity. After that, we'll get into the weeds of his assault strategy and what his ultimate goal actually is. Then, we'll cover the one exception to his plan, and we'll finish with the final divine decree.
All right, let's start at the very beginning of this cosmic dialogue, the specific request that Iblis makes, and the nature of the response he gets from God.
So here's the request itself, and right away the commentary points out something really important, the exact wording he uses. Iblis has just been cursed, but notice, he doesn't ask for forgiveness. He asks for time. He's asking for a delay, a respite, until a very, very specific moment in the cosmic timeline.
So you gotta ask, and the commentary does exactly this. Why that specific timing? I mean, what's the significance of asking to live only until the day of resurrection? He could have asked for eternity, right? But no, he picks this very specific, finite endpoint. Why?
And this is where it gets really fascinating. The source document points out a supercritical distinction. The term Iblis uses, Yawmi Yub'athun, isn't interpreted by the commentator as the final day of judgment. Nope, it's interpreted as the time of the first trumpet blast. You know, the moment of universal death for all creation. So he wanted to live through all of human history, but his request actually implies that he still wanted to face the terror of that first blast, not escape it completely.
Okay, so here's God's response. And at first glance, you might think, okay, that's a yes. But hold on. The commentary tells us to look closer. The wording is incredibly subtle. It says, you are of those given respite, which is not quite the same as saying your request is granted exactly as you asked.
And this brings us to a really central question for understanding what's going on here with divine authority. Was this reprieve given on Iblis's terms or on God's? Did God give him exactly what he wanted, or was it something a little different?
Well, the analysis here is crystal clear. God's authority is never compromised. The commentary actually brings in another verse to shed light on this, one that clarifies the respite is until the day of the time appointed and known. And that time is interpreted as the first trumpet blast. So what does that mean? It means the request was essentially granted, but the timeline was affirmed by divine decree, not dictated by Iblis. He gets his time to mislead humanity for sure, but he will absolutely not escape the universal experience of death. So the moment he gets his reprieve, Iblis does a complete 180. He goes from being a petitioner to an all-out adversary, and he makes this solemn vow, a declaration of eternal war against every single one of us.
And wow, what he says next is just packed with meaning. First, you've got the psychology of it, right? He blames God for his own arrogance and his downfall. Because you have sent me astray. That refusal to take any personal responsibility, that's the very foundation of his rebellion. And second, he tells us his exact strategy. He's going to set up camp, lie in wait, and ambush humanity specifically on God's straight path.
So what is this straight path? Well, according to the commentary, this is the main event. This is the battleground. It's not just any old road, it is the singular path of truth and salvation. Iblis isn't just vowing to cause random chaos. No, he's vowing to intercept people who are actively trying to follow God. His war is with faith itself.
Okay, now we get to the really granular part, a forensic breakdown of his actual methods. Iblis doesn't just declare war, he gives us a detailed blueprint of his attack. This next verse, it's like a masterclass in spiritual warfare.
Just listen to this. This single line lays out the sheer scope of his plan. It's comprehensive, it's all-encompassing. He's coming at humanity from every conceivable angle. But what do these directions actually mean in practice? And this is where the commentary just breaks it down brilliantly. From before them, that's about the future, making you doubt the hereafter, the day of judgment, all the consequences.
From behind them, that's all about the past, using your attachment to this world to trap you and hold you back. From their right, the side of good deeds, this is where he corrupts your worship with things like pride or showing off. And from their left, the side of sin, well, that's the most direct attack, tempting you with all those base desires and forbidden things. It's a complete spiritual and psychological siege.
But hang on a second. If this is a full-on, comprehensive assault, something's missing, isn't it? He mentions front, back, right, and left. What about above and below? You know, the commentary says this is no accident. It's a huge admission on his part, a confession of his own limitations.
Because you see, two paths are always protected. From above, that's the connection to divine mercy, to grace, to revelation. Satan has absolutely no power to cut that line between you and God. And from below, this represents the ultimate act of humility, prostration, or sujud. In that moment of total submission, a servant is completely shielded. Think about it. Arrogance caused his fall, so he has zero power over sincere humility. So, after spelling out his entire battle plan, Iblis reveals his end game. What's the point of all this? What's he really after? The very end of his vow tells us everything. And there it is, right there. His number one goal isn't just to get people to sin, it's to make them ungrateful. He says with total confidence that his plan will be so successful that God will find the vast majority of humanity completely lacking in gratitude. That's the core of his entire mission.
But gratitude here, or shukr, is so much more than just saying thank you. The commentary gives us a really deep definition. To be one of the shakirin means you are actively using the blessings God has given you, your health, your wealth, your mind, your time, in a way that is obedient and pleasing to Him. So ingratitude isn't just forgetting to say thanks, it's the misuse, the misapplication of all of God's gifts, and that's the state Satan is trying to create in all of us.
But for all his bravado, for all this detailed planning, Iblis himself admits there's a loophole. There's one group of people he just can't touch, and the commentary highlights this as a key element of our divine protection.
And to find out who these people are, the source text points us to another verse where Iblis lays it out himself. He says he can get to everyone except God's chosen servants. The Arabic word used here is mukhlasin, which means those who have been purified or made sincere by God.
So what is it? What's the shield? It's sincerity, ikhlas. We're talking about people whose every intention and action is so purely for God's sake, with no contamination from ego or pride or wanting to be seen by others. This perfect purity of intention acts like a divine shield that Satan, by his own admission, cannot get through.
And that brings us to the end of this incredible exchange. We've had the request, the reprieve, the declaration of war, the admission of limitation, and now God issues the final, unwavering judgment. And this judgment is just absolute. It starts with a direct order to Iblis, get out. But then, look how it expands to include anyone who willingly chooses to follow his path. The consequence is laid out with zero ambiguity.
And again, the commentary does this amazing forensic analysis of the Arabic. The words used for expelled are so specific. Maduman doesn't just mean rejected, it means despised, contemptible, worthless. And maghuran isn't just banished, it means being thrown out, forcefully driven away. Together, they paint this picture of complete, utter, and permanent disgrace.
And the verse ends with this bone-chilling confirmation, I will fill hell with you all. The commentary makes it so clear that the word all binds the fate of the followers directly to their leader. It's a collective punishment for the collective choice of rebellion, and it just cements the absolute gravity of making that choice. Okay, so let's wrap this up and pull together the key takeaways from this deep dive. 1. Iblis's power is real, but it is absolutely limited by God. 2. His strategy targets our core vulnerabilities, our relationship with the future, the past, our good deeds, and our desires. 3. But the paths of mercy from above and humility from below are always protected. 4. His ultimate goal is to create ingratitude in us. 5. The only impenetrable shield is pure sincerity, ikhlas. And finally, 6. The choice to follow him leads to a shared and terrible fate. So this all leaves us with one final, very practical question to think about, doesn't it? We've basically been handed the enemy's playbook, and we've also been shown exactly where our defenses are strongest. The perpetual challenge for all of us, then, is how do we consciously apply this knowledge to fortify ourselves every single day? How do we strengthen our belief in the hereafter, manage our love for the world, purify our worship, and discipline our desires.